Judson Jerome believes there is a relationship between where you learn and what you learn. He argues for the value of learning outside the traditional educational institutions or grids offered in this society. Communes and collectives are new forms in which learning takes place. But even in a counter-institution, there is no escape from the political and social issues in America. In this Vermont collective, people struggle to live by the values of the new culture, which include for them resistance to becoming isolated and irrelevant.
I guess the main reason I came was because I was tired of being alone. I'd gone from a disastrous marriage into a living situation with another man that was equally disastrous, and was living out in the country with 2 kids, and was tired of feeling like I had to either have that kind of protective relationship or have nothing at all.
I think everybody who's here moved in because of some personal feeling like there was no other place to go. But there was a way in which almost everybody was moving out of isolation, looking for something that would knit their lives together. I'd been doing a lot of political work in the 6 or 7 years before we moved here. And part of my motivation for doing that was to try to find some new political format to work out of. I've been doing a lot of draft counseling and a lot of anti-war work and that kind of stuff. And I've gotten pretty dissatisfied with the way in which I related to people in the process of that work, because it was just really necessary a lot of times to push people around in very difficult kinds of ways. It wasn't credible to me that we could fight some kind of a revolution and wind up on the other end of the thing with something that was not worth fighting another revolution against.
To learn how to share with people, to learn how to share the kids, to see the kids grow in a much more fluid way, a much easier way for them, share responsibilities, share everything, pain, learn to be tolerant, and getting involved in outside work that I wouldn't have been able to do had I been saddled with the responsibility of caring for 2 kids all the time.
I don't know that there's any part of life that cannot be a learning experience. So I don't know that communes and collectives do more of that. But I do think that they do a different part of it than any other thing that I know about, which is that people here are beginning to try to deal with groups of people.
It just seems to me like it's a process of definition as we define what kind of relationships we want to have and how we conduct them, as we define how we want to deal with the outside world. I think we're getting all that stuff down a lot better. You know, more and more. It just happens. And I think that's, you know, like Bridget and Cricket have defined now that they want to spend the major part of their time doing medical work at the free clinic. I've defined that what I want to do is work intensively with the children. And in a way, as we get to know each other better, we feel freer to define ourselves without the kind of restrictions we were in before, like I'm a mother, or Bridget's, well, it's been, I think, especially even harder for Bridget and Cricket, who define themselves as mothers. And so it's hard for them, like, to make a decision that they want to work in the clinic, but they feel free to define themselves that way because they trust the rest of us with the kids and to do the kind of things that they feel are right with the kids.
And that's happened much more recently. That's, you know, that trust has come for me around the children just recently, that I can go and be at the clinic and not feel really guilty about not being here, being with the kids. And but now I hardly even think about it anymore. I just go, and I'm you know, really secure about what will happen here, because everything seems to be much more together around the children.
A great big one? Here's a great big one right here. Oh, you can have a little one after you finish the great big one. Here's a great big one.
Here, honey. There's some under
other foot?
We can do the bow.
Try to make your all of your toes to go. Okay. Maya.
I can do it easily.
Oh.
Now. What?
And what else did you want?
Yeah, definitely no toes.
Where are the clouds? Oh, are these clouds? Ah.
You bend it. It can be a walkway. Have you bend it? It can be a walkway.
What is
It's raining all over
walkways
the
are fun,
devil.
Amelia?
It's raining all over the devil. Yeah, they're scribbling it up. No, it's raining.
Before, people asked what was involved in moving in. It was really, it was undefined, you know. Oh, you just sort of move in and you sign up on the schedule, and somebody watches the kids. And now it's a really lot more specific, so you can lay it out to people and make it really sound unpleasant, if you want. And, or, I mean, it's like a bigger hurdle that people who want to move in have to get over. I mean, they're faced with the fact that we do have 12 kids, that the people who spend time with kids spend pretty much a large amount of time, and it's a large commitment, not just to hanging around and being with them, but to doing things with them. And it's the same thing with the house. The meals have to get done, the dishes have to get done, the house has to be kept clean. You know, things have been arranged so that it's a lot less to escape out of the reality of having to do things with other people in the house. And I think that's going to be a real stabilizing factor.
This is a single barrel job. I'm trying to find something that's similar to this. Right. I don't think they have it here.
Yeah.
Ordinary choke, keyhole,
I mean, I would be into to at least taking it apart and taking a look at it, since sooner or later we got to do that. But I also understand that we should, like, get to the other cars, since we may be able to fix them today and have them running.
Well, we can take the carburetor off in 10 minutes, right?
Why don't we just do that?
And that's a hassle because of the front hall.
It's not just that, though. I mean, one of the things that I find is that if you decide you're going to take 2 or 3 kids out, then, you know, you feel like you have to take 6 or 7 out. And Summer said last night that she thought it was, you know, like a good time to spend with maybe just 2 or 3 kids.
But often there aren't that many that want to go. I mean, often there aren't more than about 4 that want to go. Kenneth almost always does. Matt and Pat sometimes do. Liza usually does. Nathan.
Well, if I go out, I'd rather take at the most 3 kids.
Yeah, I think that often you don't get more takers than 3.
Yeah.
If things worked out tomorrow and we had the carburetor broken down, I would be anxious to go to Burlington and pick up those parts. And as part of that, I would be glad to take, like, 2 kids with me and go to the auto shop and do that number and pick up the carburetor and bring them back.
During the summertime, when we were working in the garden, the farmer who runs this farm was working in the field behind us. One of our men went up to talk to him, and they arranged a deal whereby we helped him hang. At that point, he was paying us money to help him. And we, of course, couldn't buy milk for the whole house. So we weren't drinking milk then. And then we asked him how he would feel if we came over to help him do the chores, if he would give us milk for it. And he said yes. So we go over every Sunday, get up at 5, get home about 9 or 10, go back about 4:30, get home about 7. And for that we get 3 times 7, 21 gallons of milk a week. It's a real drag every Sunday morning at 5 o'clock. You decide you're never going to go again. Yeah. Me and I talk about it every week. Now we're going to quit. We're never going back.
I almost didn't make it this morning.
Yeah.
It's the closest I've ever come.
The alarm goes off and you think, oh, I don't want to go over there. It takes about 15 minutes to get used to it. It makes you sick for about the first 15 minutes, and then you can get into it.
And then the more you do it, the more nauseous you get.
Oh, and then last week I tried to explain to him, when we were talking about not wanting to milk anymore, I tried to explain to him that we wanted more people to come because that was one reason we were living with people, because we didn't want to do all the shit work ourselves. And there's so many people over here, why couldn't any of you come? And so we got into the discussion about why people live in collectives. Apparently he didn't know what we were talking about, because when I said collective today, he didn't know what it meant. And he said, well, Jesus Christ, I was surprised to find out you were over there. I said, what do you mean? He said,
You were in high school with him, didn't you?
yeah. When I found out that John Peter was there and your sister was there and you were there, I was really shocked. And I said, why? And he just thinks, and I said, it's not as easy as you think, you know. We don't sit around and smoke dope and drink beer all day. Oh, Christ, what do you do?
Although,
Only half of the day, and the other half
you have to sleep.
We recuperate from smoking all that dope.
Charlie supports.
feed the kids. We have to feed the kids, you know. They get 3 meals a day. What do you think?
You drink milk all day. Milk's in the car.
Ice cream.
It took me a year, over a year, to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And I was allowed by this group of people to do some really weird things and to just be whacked out a lot of the time and until I could finally figure out what it was that I wanted to do. And, you know, I'm probably like maybe an extreme example of that, but I think that's happened to everybody. And we have allowed each other, because of the way we, you know, share work and stuff like that, we've allowed each other to be able to do that, and I think that's incredibly important. I mean, most people don't know what the hell they're doing, you know? And to be able to figure that out even a little bit, to be able to live in a way to be able to figure that out a little bit is just really important. So in a way, I mean, that's one way that the clinic and the kids and the food co-op and everything else fits together, I think.
It was especially hard for me as a woman to figure out what I wanted to do. You know, and say, well, I want to be with kids, right? But then really know that what I wanted to do was medicine. And be really afraid because of the whole woman thing that I was into, not to be able to say that, you know, to spend a whole lot of time with the kids and feel resentful about it, and then finally be able to say, I want to be at the clinic and I want to do medicine. It's just hard, and it's still really hard, and still there's a wrench, you know, there's a tear, you know, inside me. There are 4 things that people do when they work. One is work in the waiting room, and that's receiving people and talking with people once that work is done. You get their folders out if they've been there before, so that's ready. The other thing is paramedical work, and another thing is lab work, and it's another thing too. Wait a minute. Oh, and the other segment of it is paramedics who are training go around with the old paramedics. So you could do just whatever you wanted.
Sounds great. I'll do it all. I'd like to do it all.
Okay. I work on Thursday nights.
Well, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. I kind of thought I was going to leave like around Tuesday morning, but I don't. That's subject to change.
Carol, do you remember Carol?
Maybe
From the
if I see
conference?
her.
She works Monday nights, and that would be great. Carol and Judy and Jimmy. Phil's daddy works Monday night. So you could do whatever you wanted. It's really interesting. Do you have paramedics in Baltimore?
Well, we've done a little bit with it, not very much, because most of the doctors are uptight about legal problems as far as that goes. But we have one night that's women's night only, and we're in the process of being trained to do routine pelvic exams and pap smears and things like that. So that's where it's really starting. Beyond that, we've just been assisting exams and stuff like that. No real paramedical stuff.
It's been kind of hard. Most of the doctors we have aren't hassled at all by legal stuff, and we figure if we get busted, they'll just can us. You know, it's just all over. So we don't worry now about being busted at all. It may happen.
Yeah, well, we assume that we could be busted on so many different things that it just doesn't matter. If they want to get rid of us, they can easily.
The community's really behind us, though, so that would really help. I have a feeling they wouldn't come in and just do that.
What kind of community does it serve?
Working class. It's in the midst of a working class community. We still have a whole lot of young people coming in, which is good. You know, I get uptight if the whole waiting room is full of just, you know, freaks, but mostly that hasn't been happening.
Do you have a lot of
Sets, Adrian, working on sets.
are there a lot of neighborhood people that are actually working in the clinic?
No, just a couple. That's been really hard
That's
to
a real
do.
problem for us too.
Okay, let's go. Whoa. Whoops, not very well aligned. We've got to breathe. Drag it back. It's hitting the wall. Pull it back. Towards us.
Oh, yeah, huh?
Sure. Here it comes.
Up.
Get that. Dinah, why don't you go around there and hold this tape when I hand it to you? Hold it right to the end of the first board. No, to there. That's right.
Do you really think it would be all right? She asked. Perhaps we better stay here. There are people down there, you know, and they might not be kind to us. What do you think, Brownie? Let's ask our friend Peter, said Brownie. He'll give us good advice. That's a fine idea, the others agreed. By this time, Peter was sound asleep in the soft grass.
I don't feel that the kids should stay out of public schools. We can use the public schools. We can learn from them. They can learn from us.
I think that, well, maybe that's true to an extent, but I think that we shouldn't say, you know, that our kids should go to the public schools. I would hate to say that.
No.
I mean, there are obviously some children who ought not to go to public school.
Well, see, I don't know. Like, if the public schools were, it's a whole, you know, it's a whole circular roundabout discussion. The people that our children are going to be dealing with are not, you know, just people here. The people that Dinah's going to be dealing with are not Adrian and Kenneth and Nathan and Ben and Beth exclusively. It's all those people out there. You know, it's all those people that she's now going to kindergarten with.
Yeah, but you have to weigh that against the fact that so much of a public school experience is really destructive.
But there's a way, there just seems to be a way that we can, I didn't used to feel this way. I mean, Stuart used to talk about incorporating and doing this and doing that and working through institutions and using the bank, and I said, you know, fuck it, I don't want to do that, you're crazy. But now I'm coming around now to feeling like we have to use them. We cannot, you know, the clinic cannot exist, you know, cannot exist in a separated from the hospital. You know, it can't. We cannot exist as a kids collective, separated from, you know, that we're going to be either fighting them, working with them, something. The schools.
We're going to have some kind of relationship.
Right, we are.
Yeah.
And the difference is that we don't have to accept their rules. Like you say, we make our own and go up. I think that's just incredibly important. Like we don't, like at the clinic, we don't have to, we haven't decided that because we don't have some kind of a medical degree that we're incapable of giving injections, because that's ridiculous. Any more than because we don't have particular degrees, we can't teach the kids. I mean, it's the same thing.
If we got to the point where we were running, where we had available educational experiences that kids chose rather than Charlotte Central School, if we got to the point where the food co-op operation in fact held out 10 or 15,000 people in Chittenden County from buying at the Grand Way or buying at A&P, if we got to the point where in fact we had a group of fairly highly competent paramedics who were practicing medicine on street corners.
Hey, buddy.
If we had just those things, you know, I think that we would get come down on incredibly hard. You see, I think that the one thing that you're not dealing with in that kind of formulation of happy relationships between ourselves and the community is that the community institutions that exist get power from serving those functions that they serve, and that they're not going to be happy with a group of freaky, long-haired people coming along doing their functions without their accreditation, without paying their taxes, without paying
Stuart, there's a certain amount of patience and reality involved, and you can't, you know, like it's the same thing. I see the same thing, the parallel between what'll happen to the kids and what's happening to the kids now as what's happening to women. And you feel like, you know, I in my lifetime will see the end of oppression to women. Well, that's ridiculous. And I in my lifetime will see the end, you know, the struggle between public education and our own education for our kids will be resolved. I don't think that's true. I think that our kids are going to live, and as I will continue to live my life as a woman, not quite sure, you know, I'll be fighting. I don't want to be oppressed anymore, but I'm not quite sure when I'm going to get out of it and when something happens to me, whether it's really messing me up or not. But I'll keep fighting.